The planet was dead. There were no birds, no wind, no green, just broken metal, rusted ships, and silence. Jace, a human scavenger, walked slowly through the ruins of an old battlefield. He wore a dirty coat, carried a backpack, and kept his rifle on his shoulder. His boots crunched over burnt bones and shattered glass. He wasn't here for a fight. He was here for parts, for scrap, for anything left behind. But something didn't feel right today. The air was too quiet, even for a graveyard. Jace stepped into the wreckage of a large alien transport ship. Its hull was torn open like a can. Wires hung from the ceiling. Smoke still leaked from somewhere deep inside. He turned on his flashlight. The beam swept across broken crates, smashed tools, and blood on the walls. Looks like someone left in a hurry, he muttered. He took a step forward, and that's when he heard it. A sound. Faint. Fragile. A cry. Jace froze. It came again, high-pitched, almost like a baby animal. Or a child. He raised his rifle slowly and moved deeper into the wreck. His heart beat faster. He had been to many wrecks before, but never heard something like this. He turned a corner and stopped. A small figure was curled up in a corner of the ship. It was shaking, covered in dust and ash. Its skin was pale blue and glowing faintly in the dark. An alien child. Jace lowered his rifle. "Hey," he said softly. The child flinched, scooting back into the corner. "It's okay," Jace said, kneeling slowly. "I'm not here to hurt you." The child looked at him with wide, glowing eyes. A faint line of blood ran from his forehead. His clothes were torn. His hands gripped a small, glowing pendant around his neck. Jace opened his pack and pulled out a water bottle. "Here, you need this more than I do." He placed the bottle on the floor and stepped back. After a long pause, the child crawled forward and took it. He drank quickly, like he hadn't tasted water in days. "What's your name?" Jace asked. The child didn't answer. He just looked, down clutching the pendant. "All right," Jace said gently. "I'll call you Lumo. That okay?" The child blinked once, then nodded. Suddenly, a red light flashed on the wall. "Beep! Beep!" Jace turned. A hidden drone powered up from the shadows, its guns whirring to life. It had been guarding the wreck, and now it had found him. "Down!" Jace shouted. He grabbed Lumo and rolled to the side as the drone fired. The wall behind them exploded in sparks. Jace pulled his blaster and fired back. One shot, two, then three. The drone hissed, sparked, and dropped. Dead. Smoke filled the air. Jace coughed and checked Lumo. The child was scared, but not hurt. "You all right?" he asked. Lumo nodded slowly. Jace stared at the fallen drone. "That wasn't random," he said. "Someone wanted you dead." He picked Lumo up in his arms. The child was light. Too light. "You don't belong here," Jace whispered. He looked at the glowing pendant again. It had strange markings, royal symbols. Jace had seen them before, during the war. That wasn't just any alien child. This boy was from a noble house, maybe even a prince. Jace stepped out of the wreck and looked at the dark sky above. "Okay, Lumo," he said. "I don't know who you are yet, but I'm not leaving you behind." He turned and started walking fast toward his ship, eyes watching the sky. Someone would come for the wreck soon. He just hoped he could get out before they did. But what he didn't know was this. Across the stars, a mother was crying too, a powerful queen. And when she found out her son was alive, she would do anything to get him back, even if it meant starting another war. The night was cold. Jace's ship, an old freighter named Whisper, hovered silently on a lonely hill. It wasn't built for speed or comfort, but it had one thing that mattered right now: safety. Inside, the lights were dim. A warm blanket wrapped around the alien child, now resting in the co-pilot's seat. His name was Lumo. His breathing had slowed, but his hands still held the glowing pendant tight. Jace sat across from him, staring at the strange object. The markings on it weren't just decoration. They were royal sigils, symbols from one of the oldest alien dynasties in the galaxy. He'd seen them once before, a long time ago. During the last war, Jace had fought in a deep space siege against an alien empire. One of the captured warriors wore similar symbols on her chest plate. She had fought like a storm protecting a child, but she was taken by her own people before Jace could ask more. Could it be? Was this child her son? Was that why the pendant looked so familiar? Suddenly, Lumo opened his eyes. He sat up slowly, eyes scanning the room. "You're safe," Jace said gently. Lumo blinked. "You? Human?" "Yes," Jace nodded. "And you're Lumo?" The boy paused, then nodded too. "My name," he whispered. "But not my true name." Jace leaned forward. "What's your real name?" Lumo looked at the pendant. "I am Kalumeth Vey," he said slowly. "Son of High Queen El-Shara." Jace's heart stopped. He sat back, stunned. He'd heard of Queen El-Shara. She ruled over a vast alien territory and had vanished from the public eye after her child's supposed death in a rebellion. But that child wasn't dead. He was sitting right here, alive and hunted. "I don't understand," Jace said. "Why were you in that wreck?" Lumo's voice trembled. "They took me. My mother's enemies. They made it look like I died. I escaped in the crash, but no one came." Jace closed his eyes. He had stumbled into something huge, something dangerous. Saving this boy hadn't just saved a life. It had triggered a galactic firestorm. The ship beeped suddenly. Incoming signal, encrypted, unknown source. Jace muted it. No good news ever came without a face. He stood up and opened a locked cabinet. Inside were a few emergency supplies, food, a shortwave jammer, and a small tracker disabler. He smashed the disabler on the console just in case. "Listen," he said, to Lumo. "If what you're saying is true, there are people coming, bad ones." Lumo looked scared but didn't cry. He was quiet, strong. Too strong for his age. Jace handed him a protein bar. "You eat. I'll figure out our next step." Lumo looked up. "Why? Help me?" Jace froze. Why was he helping? He could have walked. He sold the child, collected a reward, if not from the rebels, then from bounty hunters, but he didn't. He couldn't. Maybe because once, long ago, during war, he saw the same glow in the eyes of a warrior who begged him not to shoot, and he had lowered his weapon. "You remind me of someone," Jace said. "Someone brave." Lumo's eyes softened. Then, for the first time, he smiled. Just a little. Suddenly, the ship's lights flickered. Jace rushed to the console. Unidentified ship entering low orbit. No IFF code. "Damn it," he muttered. "They found us." Lumo stood up, alarmed. "Get to the back," Jace said quickly. "Hide under the crates. Don't come out unless I call." The boy obeyed without question. Jace grabbed his rifle. He wasn't going to run. Not yet. Outside, the ship landed softly. 3 shadowy figures emerged. They weren't soldiers. They were assassins, clad in sleek black armor, carrying weapons that left no sound, only death. Jace aimed his rifle through the cockpit window, breathing slowly. He whispered to himself, "Not just a child," he gritted his teeth. "He's a future." Jace's hand tightened around his rifle. Outside the ship, the shadows moved. 3 figures, tall, fast and silent, spread across the rocks like smoke. They wore black armor with no markings, no flags, no light, only cold. These were not bounty hunters. These were void assassins, trained to kill royalty, trained to leave nothing behind. And now, they were here for Lumo. Jace whispered into his comm, "Stay hidden, no matter what." Lumo didn't reply, but Jace knew he was listening. The child had already learned how to survive. The assassins circled the ship, One moved toward the front hatch. Another crept toward the engine. The third vanished from sight. Jace watched through the cracked cockpit window. He had seconds. No time to run. Only time to fight. He opened the top hatch and climbed onto the roof of Whisper, keeping low. Night wind brushed against his face. His old soldier instincts returned. Steady breath. Silent. Feet, eyes sharp. He waited. Then, click dotty, a boot touched the hull. Jace rolled sideways and fired. His shot hit the first assassin square in the chest, knocking him down the slope in sparks. The second spun and fired back, missing by inches. Jace ducked, dropped a stun charge, and slid off the back of the ship. Boom. Blue light lit the sky. But it wasn't over. The third assassin dropped from above like a shadow, grabbing Jace's arm and slamming him into the dirt. Jace groaned, his ribs screaming. The assassin raised a plasma blade until a small, glowing flash struck him in the back. He stumbled. Jace looked up. Lumo stood behind the crates, holding the ship's emergency flare launcher. His hands trembled, but his eyes were burning with courage. "Run!" Jace shouted. Lumo hesitated. The assassin turned toward the child. "No, no!" Jace tackled him from behind. They rolled down the rocky slope, fists slamming, blades sparking. Jace finally managed to grab his sidearm. One shot. Two. The assassin stilled. Dead. Panting, Jace crawled back to the top. Lumo ran to him, eyes wide with fear and guilt. "I didn't listen," the boy whispered. I couldn't let him hurt you." Jace pulled him close. "You did good," he said. "You saved me." They climbed into the ship and sealed the hatch. Jace slumped into the pilot's seat. 3 assassins, he muttered. "That's not just a bounty. That's an execution order." Lumo sat beside him, still holding the flare launcher. "I think they were sent by the same ones who took me," he said. Jace nodded. "Which means they know you're alive. And they'll keep coming." The screen blinked again. Incoming transmission. This time, a face appeared. An alien woman, dressed in royal armor. Her voice shook as she spoke. "If you have my son, please respond. I am Queen Elshara of House Vey." Jace froze. So did Lumo. His voice cracked. "Mother?" Jace slowly pressed the comm button. "I found your boy," he said. "He's safe, for now, but he's being hunted." The Queen's voice filled with emotion. "You must bring him to the coordinates I send, please. He is all I have left." The screen flickered and went dark. Jace turned to Lumo. "We have a choice," he said. "We can keep running planet to planet, or we go to your mother." Lumo looked scared, but he nodded. "I want to go home." Jace smiled faintly. "Then we better fly fast." As the ship's engines roared to life, the wind outside swept away the bodies of the assassins. But somewhere above, more ships were already on the move. Warships, because bringing Lumo home wouldn't end the danger. It would start something even bigger. The ship Whisper soared through deep space. Jace sat in the pilot's chair, watching the stars pass. Lumo slept in the small cabin behind him, curled up beneath a blanket. For the first time since they met, the child looked at peace, but Jace's mind was far from calm. The message from Queen Elshara echoed in his ears. "If you have my son, bring him to me. He is all I have left." Her voice. Why did it sound so familiar? Jace closed his eyes, and for the first time in years, he let the memory in. 10 years ago, the last days of the human Varnari War. Jace had been younger, just a corporal, bloody, tired, and angry. He remembered storming a burning alien temple. Inside, he had found her, a Varnari warrior, wounded, her arm broken, but standing firm in front of a small crying child. She raised her blade, but Jace didn't shoot. He remembered her eyes, sharp, gold, and full of sorrow. She said 3 words, words that had haunted him for a decade. Take the child. He had hesitated. Then the roof collapsed. He had barely escaped. The woman vanished. The child disappeared in the chaos. Until now. Jace opened his eyes with a sharp breath. He looked back at Lumo sleeping. I knew you, he whispered. I almost saved you back then. And your mother, she trusted me. A soft beep pulled him from thought. They were near the rendezvous point, an old asteroid station orbiting a dead moon. Jace switched on stealth mode. He wasn't taking chances. Too many people wanted Lumo dead. And if what Jace remembered was real, then he had already failed this family once. He wouldn't fail them again. Lumo woke as the ship neared the docking bay. Is she really there? He asked. Jace nodded. If she's smart, she'll come alone. Lumo held his pendant tightly. She's not like them. She fights, but not for power. She fights for us. Jace smiled. Sounds like someone I met once. The ship landed. The airlock opened, and from the shadows, she stepped forward. Queen El-Shara. She wore no crown, no guards, just a dark cloak and tired eyes. But Jace recognized her instantly. So did Lumo. Mother, he cried, running to her. She dropped to her knees and caught him in her arms. My son, my light, you're alive, she whispered, her voice cracking. Jace turned away, giving them space, but then her voice rose. Human. He turned back. She stood, holding Lumo's hand, and she smiled. You remember me? He nodded slowly. Temple ruins, 10 years ago. You said, take the child. I knew I might not survive, she said. But I saw your eyes. You hesitated. You had mercy. Jace's voice was low. But I didn't save him. She shook her head. But you saved him now. That's what matters. Suddenly, alarms blared. Across the station, Queen El-Shara turned sharply. They found us. A peacekeeper drone zipped past the window, then exploded. Jace's console blinked red. Incoming ships, he muttered. Fast ones. The Queen looked at him, then at Lumo. You brought him to me, now help me protect him. Jace loaded his rifle. I already made that promise once. As they prepared to defend the station, something unspoken passed between them, not duty, not survival, something deeper, a connection built not on blood, but on a memory never forgotten. The station shook as another blast hit the outer ring. Jace stood at the command panel, sealing down all airlocks. Lumo hid behind a bulkhead, gripping his mother's cloak tightly. Queen El-Shara didn't blink as the alarms howled. She was calm, even as warships drew closer. That scared Jace more than the explosions. What aren't you telling me? He asked. She looked at him, eyes steady. I trusted you once before. I'll trust you again. She knelt beside Lumo and kissed his forehead. Then, she stood and walked with Jace into the sealed chamber behind the command bay. The room was silent, lit only by soft blue lights. Symbols glowed on the walls, ancient Varnari language. This, she said, is the reason they're hunting my son. She waved her hand over a panel. A hologram rose, a star map, filled with ancient alien markings and unknown constellations. Jace frowned. That's not standard territory. No, El-Shara said. It's lost territory, forbidden, hidden for thousands of years. Jace stepped closer. And this is royal inheritance, she whispered. My son doesn't just carry my blood. He carries the key to something much older, something powerful, something the rebels want to control. She touched the glowing pendant around her neck. It was identical to Lumo's. Only 2 keys exist. One for me, one for him. Jay stared at the map. Is this a weapon? No, she replied. A choice. A power that can either unite galaxies or destroy them. Jace took a deep breath. You said you trusted me before. But why? You had hundreds of enemies, thousands of soldiers. Why choose me to protect him? She looked at him, her voice soft. Because you didn't pull the trigger. Jace froze. You saw me bleeding in the rubble, a soldier of your enemy. You had every reason to kill me, but instead you hesitated. You looked at me, not as a target, but as a mother holding a child. She stepped closer. You were human. Truly human. The room fell silent. Jace didn't know what to say, so she said it for him. You didn't fail 10 years ago, Elshara said. You saved me, and you gave me the strength to keep fighting for my son, even after they took him. A sudden explosion shook the station again. Jace rushed to the panel. They've breached outer shields. We need to evacuate. The Queen nodded. There's a hidden pod below the command floor. Old royal tech. Small, but cloaked. Jace blinked. Why didn't you say that earlier? I had to know if you'd still protect him when without reward. They returned to the hall. Lumo looked up at them, frightened but silent. Jace knelt beside him. Hey, you ready for another adventure? Lumo clutched his pendant. Will you come too? Jace smiled. You think I'd let you go without me? The Queen pressed her hand to the floor. A circular hatch opened, revealing a sleek black pod glowing faintly in the shadows. She turned to Jace. This pod will take him to my secret world, a place no enemy can reach, but only someone I trust can fly it. Her golden eyes met his. Will you do that for me? Jace hesitated. All his life he'd been drifting, war to war, job to job, never belonging. But this child, this family, this truth felt different. He nodded. I'll take him, and I'll guard him. The Queen smiled. Then she leaned in and whispered, There's one more secret. The rebels, they're not just after him. They want you too. Jace's eyes widened. Me? She stepped back. You carry old blood, Jace. Human, but part Varnari. That's why you hesitated that day. Why your mind never matched your orders. He staggered back. I'm not. You are, she said gently. And that's why this galaxy needs you. The royal pod launched silently into the dark. Jace sat in the pilot's seat. Lumo lay in a sleep pod beside him, wrapped in warmth and protection. The ship's controls responded to Jace's touch as if it knew him, as if it recognized him. Maybe Queen Elshara had been right, maybe he wasn't just human. The pod moved through hidden corridors of space, old star lanes once used by Varnari nobles. The Queen's voice played through a final message. The planet you're headed to is called Zeros Fall. Only the royal keys can open its gates. Once inside, you'll be safe. There, my son can live. And so can you, Jace. Her words felt like a promise or a goodbye. 3 hours into the journey, the ship suddenly jerked. Jace's eyes snapped open. Warning, ship interference detected. He grabbed the controls, but they were frozen. Emergency override engaged. Docking initiated. No, Jace whispered. This wasn't part of the route. He looked down at Lumo. The boy was still asleep. Outside the window, a new ship appeared. Not Varnari, not Peacekeeper, human military. The pod was pulled into a docking bay. The door hissed open. Jace raised his weapon, ready for a fight. But a familiar voice spoke. Easy, soldier. A tall man in a captain's uniform stepped into view. Commander Arlen. Jace knew him. They had fought together years ago. Arlen smiled. I didn't expect to see you guarding a prince. Jace frowned. How did you find us? We never lost you, Arlen said. You've been on our watch list for years, ever since the temple incident. Jace's blood went cold. You were spying on me? Arlen nodded. We had to. You made contact with a Varnari noble. We didn't know what you were. We still don't. Jace stepped between Arlen and Lumo. What do you want? Same thing. The Queen wants, Arlen said. To use you, the boy is leverage, a symbol, but you You're something more, a bridge, maybe even a weapon. Jace's grip tightened on his blaster. I'm not a tool. No, Arlen replied. You're a chance. He stepped closer. Come with us. Work with us. We'll keep the boy safe. You'll be rewarded. You'll never have to run again. Jace looked at Lumo, still sleeping, then at Arlen. You're lying. Arlen's smile faded. Then you leave me no choice. Soldiers appeared behind him. Jace backed toward the pod, grabbing a flare stick from the wall. He pressed a hidden switch. The room flashed with white light. Boom! Smoke filled the chamber. Jace grabbed Lumo and sprinted down the corridor. Alarms blared. He ducked around corners, dodged blasts, and finally found the escape hangar. A single shuttle waited inside. Old, scarred, but alive. He strapped Lumo in, fired. The engines and burst out of the docking bay into open stars. Bullets followed, but too late. They were gone. Inside the quiet shuttle, Lumo slowly opened his eyes. Jace sat beside him, bleeding from his shoulder. Where are we? Lumo asked. Jace exhaled. Far enough, for now. Lumo looked at him. You saved me again. Jace looked away. I almost gave you up. But you didn't. No, Jace whispered. I didn't. He held the ship's controls, his knuckles white. They said I'd be rewarded. They offered me peace. He glanced at Lumo. But peace without you isn't peace. It's betrayal. Lumo reached out and gently held Jace's hand. You're my guardian now. Jace's throat tightened. Maybe I always was. The small shuttle floated in orbit above a silver planet, Xerosfall. It didn't appear on most star maps. No trade routes led here, no warships flew past, but the Varnari called it sacred, the last world, the place where bloodlines began, and where the old one said peace would one day return. Jace stood at the edge of the open ramp, gazing down at the quiet surface below. Lumo stood beside him, still just a child, but already carrying the weight of galaxies in his small hands. The shuttle descended gently into a hidden valley, surrounded by tall silver trees and glowing stones. As the ramp lowered, a group of ancient guardians stepped forward. Tall Varnari, monks, warriors with no weapons, only symbols of honor. They bowed as Lumo stepped off the ramp, and then they bowed to Jace. He looked confused. I'm not one of you. The elder monk raised his eyes. You protected the blood, not with orders, not with power, but with heart. That makes you more than one of us. It makes you Varnari and human, both. Queen Elshara soon arrived, her ship descending behind them. She embraced Lumo tightly, then looked at Jace. You brought him home, even when it cost you everything. Jace nodded. You gave me a second chance. I didn't want to waste it. She stepped aside and gestured toward a ceremonial platform. A legacy must be claimed, she said. Not by blood alone, but by choice. Jace hesitated, but then Lumo took his hand. Come with me, he whispered. They walked together onto the platform. The twin pendants, Lumo's and Elshara's, were placed into the crystal altar. The stones lit up in brilliant blue light. Symbols appeared in the sky, stars rearranging themselves. A new path unlocked, not just for the boy, but for everyone. A voice echoed from the altar, not human, not alien, ancient. The protector has returned. The heir stands in the light. Let peace be born. Through remembrance. The monks bowed again. Elshara's eyes filled with tears. For centuries we waited for this day, she said softly. But it took a human heart to bring it. That night, under a sky of 3 moons, Jace sat by the fire with Lumo. The child leaned against him, finally free of fear. You're staying, right? Lumo asked. Jace looked up at the stars. I was never meant to stay anywhere, he said. But maybe this is different. The queen joined them quietly. You don't have to choose a side anymore, Jace, she said. You are both. She placed a small emblem in his hand. the mark of the twin worlds, half human, half Varnari, protector of the bridge between them. Later, in the Hall of Memory, Jace's story was etched beside the great warriors of history, but his was the only one that didn't start with conquest. It started with kindness, a stranger, a cry in the wreckage, and a choice. Now, across systems, when peace is spoken of in war-torn regions, they don't talk about queens or kings. They speak of a man who chose not to walk away, the soldier who didn't pull the trigger, the human who became a guardian.